What's up, everybody? Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you. So another one that we wanted to go over and kind of ties into Job for a Cowboy in terms of a mid-2000s band that we were, big fan of and kind of just resurfaced here recently was the latest offering from Darkest Hour, Perpetual Terminal. This also comes out on the 23rd of February on MNRK Heavy. This band formed in 1995 in DC. This is their 10th album overall, and it has been about 7 years since their last album, Godless Prophets and the Migrant Flora, which was an absolute banger. I still jam the hell out of that one, and that was one of the reasons why I was excited to go over this one, because I was kind of hoping for like a continuation of that one.
I never jammed this band much. They always just kind of fell in that whole, Unearth, Killswitch, Shadows Fall era of time, and I listened to them here and there. We saw them somewhat recently in Fort Wayne at Pierre's with Exodus and Fit for an Autopsy, and they put on a killer show. Having not heard from them or seen them in quite some time, it was really good.
For me, I've been following this band for quite some time, actually. I think it was their debut, So Sedated, So Secure, that I initially got into, but it was Hidden Hands of a Sadist Nation that I became like a bigger fan of this band. I saw them at Ozfest 2004. They were one of the best bands on the second stage. They flat out killed it. And I'd seen them a couple of other times before, and this band has been like kind of a steady, just, solid metalcore act / melodic death metal. It's interesting because like they kind of fall in that category of like metalcore bands that don't necessarily get shit on as much by, metalheads, because they blend in melodic death metal very well, and they don't have a lot of the, more obnoxious tropes, I guess, of metalcore in that period, where everything got very sing-songy, repetitive breakdowns, and, like the stuff that, people generally complain about. This band's influences generally range from like old school hardcore, thrash metal, and, definitely a lot of melodic death metal, but they've always kind of kept it very, raw and kind of like on the nose in terms of their influences without trying to, go for too much like crossover appeal.
Leads off right away with the title track, Perpetual Terminal. Giant production, giant epic classic heavy metal harmonies just right out of the gate. Something this band is known for anyway. The guitar play on this album and on really all of their albums is pretty top notch as far as at least the style goes. They do lean again right off the bat more towards mellow death. Riffy D beats, really, really great melodies, killer lead in this song, and we'll talk more about the leads. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, right away, it's very familiar. Like, if you were a fan of metalcore and melodic death metal in the mid-2000s, it has a lot of tropes right out of the gate that are just kind of, again, right on the nose. The, big kind of thrashy harmonies, but the riff work definitely screams bands like At the Gates, Hypocrisy, but again, with like the metalcore bite, and a lot of that is supplied by John Henry's just vicious, harsh vocals. I've always been a fan of him because he sounds like he is just belting out hostility, just very directly. Like, it feels very honest. Like, he is legit pissed about whatever he's talking about, and I've always liked that.
Well, he's a fairly big dude. He's also relatively unassuming. Like, glasses, kind of dorky looking, long hair. Reminds me a lot of Trevor from the Black Dahlia Murder, actually. Just like, you'd never guess that guy was going to get up on stage and just scream his balls off.
Yeah, the first time I saw them, he had shorter hair, but he had the glasses on. I think he took them off, and even the band was like, yeah, when he takes off the glasses, he really can't see. So he ends up stepping on our pedals because he is just a torrent of motion up there. But he just kind of just has this nasty, vicious bark. Very intelligible, too.
Yeah.
And he's definitely spouting out a lot of rage, especially when you get down to songs like Societal Bile and My Only Regret. Like, those songs have a way more vicious bite. And this band kind of moves back and forth between, like, those big, rich, like luscious mellow death melodies that kind of generate those big melodic hooks to just that vicious, biting, kind of more hardcore style.
My Only Regret actually has a more punk vibe to it. It's that kind of aggression. It's kind of like the fuck you attitude.
Yeah, it's a pit spinner, like that vicious D beat. But this band has always been good at like putting melody even in those moments. And a lot of that comes down to the guitar work. Mike has always been a great riff writer, but he also excels at those like classic kind of heavy metal and thrash metal harmonies. Like he's kind of a thrasher at heart, and you definitely get that on a lot of these songs where you just kind of break into these thrashy riffs all of a sudden.
Societal Bile is so aggressive that it needs a restraining order. Like, that's a thrashy banger. That paired up with Love is Fear, that's another one that is just out to get you, out swinging like a drunk guy outside of a bar. Just ready to go, ready to fight the crowd.
Yeah, still has some like good melodic characteristics, but there's like some fierce Slayer tremolos in there. It's just kind of going for it with like all the rage of, well, a drunk Slayer fan, and we've seen more than a couple. And not just at Slayer shows. They kind of just show up everywhere, scream Slayer, and then, you know, a felony.
That's this guy minus the felony.
Minus the felony.
Yeah, Nick screams Slayer at almost every show we've ever been to, including like lesser, like Primus. Slayer!
Yep. Yeah, dude, I yelled it at a Reverend Horton Heat show, and someone yelled it back, so again, it's always appropriate. But when this band slows down, man, they get some like ferocious chuggy moments. New Utopian Dream, that might have like the most savage chuggy riff on the entire album. And probably the first one on here that really gets into that halftime groove. Like, they just let that dinner bell ride go. And the verses on here are just hostile. Like, they don't like anything, and they just want you to hurt each other in the pit.
Until you get to the chorus, which doesn't really match the intensity.
No.
But it's okay.
They do like more anthemic choruses. I will say, like, that's where melodic harmonies start coming in. And generally, a lot of the melody is supplied by the guitar work. The guitars generally generate that big epic feel in terms of like that, more soaring chorus. Because for the most part, John Henry's vocals are in that just sort of raging scream mode, and he excels at that. A good example of that is A Prayer to the Holy Death. That song is very melodic, very triumphant. It's got a good bite to it. And a lot of that is supplied by John Henry just roaring his guts out. But when it comes down to the choruses, they're big, they're lush, but he stays in like a heavier sort of mode in terms of his vocal delivery. And that one kind of showcases some really cool stuff in terms of lead work, which, yeah, we tease the lead work on here. The lead work on here is absolutely fantastic. And this was probably my first really big standout in terms of the leads, because it's a kind of a proggy, syncopated breakdown. And dude, this lead just comes out and it is soaring, it's epic sounding, and God, the lead tone is just about perfect.
And then they harmonize it, and it's just beautiful. It's one of those stank faces that you get from a really, bluesy, emotive lead where you're just like, ugh. That's that. Yeah,
you get like a nice like kind of neoclassical run, and then he hits that last note and just kind of bends it, and you're like, oh, I felt that in my pelvis. And the leads on here, I believe, are generally handled by this new guitarist, Nico Santora, formerly of Fallujah. I believe he also did a stint in Suicidal Tendencies, too.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, but I do detect the occasional Mike lead because he likes those squawky, gnarly thrash leads. The lead on Love is Fear just kind of screams Mike. Like, it's just dive bombs. It's kind of angry and dirty sounding. Almost a little Dimebag-ish.
Yeah, it screams more Dimebag, I think, than anything. It almost reminds me of the lead that's in 5 Minutes Alone.
Yeah, a little bit. Like, it's just got that snarling tone. Like, it's still melodic, but it also wouldn't mind getting in a fight with you.
But back to the new guy. Mike, you've been there being awesome, and we're thankful for that. The new guy, though, you can really tell that Nico is having fun in this band and adding something special to it. In the instrumental track, Amor Fati, I think that's how you say it, starts out with this super whiny lead melody. It almost sounds like it's crying when he comes in. Very emotive. It's got a good instrumental swing groove throughout. It's just a beautiful track. And normally we bitch about interludes, but this is very musical and very pretty. So it works. Across
the board, like, I really love the lead work. And again, there might be some trade-offs in there. It's kind of hard to tell. Mike definitely has some neoclassical play. Like, it's shown up all over this band's work. So, I don't know. It's hard to pick out, but when we saw him live, we noticed that Nico did a lot of the leads on there. So, I don't know. I would say like a good chunk of this was probably Nico in terms of the lead work. And yeah, I think we have a solid guitar tandem here. Now, for the most part, this band has always excelled at being like, melodic, but still aggressive. Like, this is the kind of band where, like, yeah, there's good catchy hooks, but you can also, like, say, yeah, I could throw a chair to this, and I think it would be perfectly fitting. And this band does experiment with melody in different facets. They took a while to introduce clean vocals into the band, and honestly, the clean vocals have always been kind of hit or miss with this band. Where I do think they kind of work are on a song like One with the Void, which is a more brooding, slow song. Like, it's got a good haunting, clean beginning, kind of like a hardcore tribal rhythm.
Yeah.
It has a very different mood than a lot of this material, because a lot of it you're going to get that ebb and flow of, you know, very angry to like more epic and triumphant, especially in the chorus hooks. This one kind of stays brooding, but it brings in some clean vocals, which they have like kind of a robotic filter on them, and honestly wouldn't sound that out of place on like a synthwave song. Like, they kind of have like if you put a Depeche Mode track behind those vocals, they would fit. Now, it does curtail into like some big heavy sections on this song with harsh vocals.
Yeah.
But here, I think those clean vocals actually kind of work in terms of like generating a different mood.
They definitely fit more in One with the Void than really anywhere else. To me, it was kind of like a heavy ballad almost. And even the robotic filter on it, he's still singing with like a little bit lower of a register. One place they didn't necessarily work, though, was in the song Mausoleum. Now, the setup to that song is excellent. Clean acoustic guitars, isolated, very intimate, so to speak. You can hear the string slides or the pick slides across the strings, and it's wonderful. But then the clean vocals come in, and it's just no.
It's a really rough contrast, because the clean vocals are very layered, very processed, and, you know, it kind of takes away from like the more natural, organic sound of the guitar melody in there. Like, it's, you know, very pretty. Like, again, like, it sounds just natural. Like, if they had a campfire in the background, it was like, yeah, no, it sounds like dude's just jamming in front of a campfire. But these processed vocals sound, I don't know, kind of auto-tuned. Like, they just don't fit the vibe. They collide with it kind of head on.
To me, it was kind of like a doomy Beatles song.
Yeah, you get this harmonized refrain of the chorus, and it does get heavier, and it gets kind of like, you know, classic In Flames-y in terms of like a folky melody, and it pairs off well musically with the acoustic part. Like, it kind of sounds like a really bummed out minstrel that wrote a heavy metal song. But like the whole vibe of it, I don't know, like it just doesn't gel very well. And
even the placement of the song, like you put that song sandwiched in between, in my opinion, two bangers, and there's already something kind of close to this emotive in this album with One with the Void. Like putting another song like that on the record with the same type of emotion doesn't necessarily do it for me.
Yeah, it's kind of an odd song. Like it doesn't completely gel. It feels almost like an instrumental interlude that they kind of just slap some vocals on. Like, again, the harsh vocals I have no problem with across the board.
Yeah.
You know, John's always excelled at that. And I've never felt that John Henry felt particularly comfortable with clean vocals, even as far back as, like, you know, some of the cleaner vocals that he did on Undoing Ruin or Deliver Us. He doesn't quite deliver those clean vocals with the intensity and the confidence that he delivers all those absolutely awesome harsh vocals. And even when they're kind of used as like a backing to choruses and such, like on New Utopian Dream, while I really enjoy that song across the board, there is, you know, a little bit of an issue with the chorus because you hear some cleans kind of come in behind the more in-key screaming, which I think he does really well, but it doesn't quite gel. Again, like, you know, going for those melodic hooks, those, I don't know, still kind of elude Darkest Hour a little bit, at least in my opinion, but when it comes down to the soaring guitar parts to supply those big melodic hooks, they nail it, and they absolutely crush it on the last track, Goddess of War, Give Me Something to Die For. This album bookends very epically.
Yeah.
Like, the opening is, you know, like a good rousing song. It launches you head first in the album well. Great building. And then this last track, I believe it is the longest track on the album, almost 7 minutes, is a great slow build and legit just loaded with killer dynamics across the board. Like, this is honestly probably one of the best tracks in this album, and it's pretty much everything they've done before. They're just doing it really well again.
Yeah, it's a big song. It pretty much incorporates every dynamic I think they've ever touched. The tension building on it is great. Actually, I was a little bit thrown off when they started the song again with acoustic guitar. I was like, please don't do what you did earlier in the record. But they didn't. It's got a great build to it. It's got probably like 2.5 minutes where it's just an instrumental jammer, and then it kicks off into like Killswitch intensity.
Yeah, like again, those classic mellow death roots come out, and again, delivering intense songs with good melodic hooks, which that's the kind of melodeath I kind of gravitate towards. Like, you know, I don't necessarily need like a big sing-songy chorus on a melodeath song. Like, that's
Correct.
always been kind of like, well, I mean, if it's there, let's see how they do. But as long as the riffs kind of, you know, get that balance of like intensity and melody, that's exactly what I want. That is, I think, you know, my biggest appeal to melodeath still. And the song being a good, slow, brooding build to the more epic, more ferocious parts, they absolutely nail it. Like, this song sounds like it could have come out in, like, you know, the early 90s in Gothenburg. Like, it has that sort of vibe, and yeah, it was a killer way to close this album. Now, I was really looking forward to this one, and again, leaving off at their last album, man, I was pretty hyped about this one. And for the most part, I think this was pretty solid. So overall, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. When this band is on, they are on. They sound tight as hell. The lead work is absolutely fantastic. The songwriting, again, harking that balance between like just old school gnarly metalcore and really awesome catchy melodeath. This band does it super well. It's when they kind of get a little bit outside of that and start, you know, kind of toying with like some of the more like clean vocals and melodic aspects. Like, sometimes those melodies just don't land as powerfully. John Henry's strength, I think, is in his harsh vocals. He's just got a great delivery. He belts that thing out with authority. The clean vocals, again, they've always felt like, well, all right, I guess I'll do a clean spot here. You know, I get it. You want to try to get some like different kinds of melodic hooks in there instead of just going by the classic harmonies and such in the leads. But, I mean, you guys have been excellent at doing that for a while. I would just kind of stick with that. But outside of that, I think this is just yet another solid Darkest Hour album. If you've been a longtime fan of Darkest Hour, I can imagine you'll probably really enjoy this. If you like more classic sounding melodeath, like again, At the Gates, Hypocrisy, Classic In Flames, there's tons of that on here. And if you just want some good hardcore kind of stompy songs, believe me, this album's still got those too. So yeah, if any of that sounds appealing to you, check this out.
I'm going to go ahead and give this 3 stars. It's very riffy. There's a lot of groove going on. The lead work is killer. I mean, if you've been listening to this band for a while, you know what they're capable of. And with a new guitarist on board, especially coming from Fallujah, you kind of know what to expect anyway. For the most part, it's fairly catchy. There's a lot of hooks going on. There's a lot of headbangable moments. Non-stop grooves. It's a jammer. It's just that sometimes for me it didn't always hit correctly. Some of the transitions I thought were a little off at times, and the clean vocals really just kind of fucked it for me in a few places. The higher pitched cleans, I'm really picky about those. And here, they didn't necessarily land in the right place. But yeah, with that being said, the harsh vocals hit really hard. I also had a couple of issues with the mix, I won't lie. The vocals are very out front. Harsh as they may be and good as they may be, it's really out front. And the bass is incredibly low. It's almost non-existent in most parts. You can hear it in the low end when it hits, but for the most part, it's like it's not even there. Anyway, if you like bands like Unearth, Killswitch Engage, Shadows Fall, or even some melodeath, At the Gates, Hypocrisy, of course, In Flames, definitely, you're probably going to dig this. I'd recommend checking it out for yourself. Who the hell am I? Just do it. It's still Darkest Hour. If you liked Darkest Hour before, you're still going to like them now. So give it a shot.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel, up in the banner in the bottom right-hand corner. But thrallsmetal.com is where you go to get Thralls Metal stuff. We have new shirts there. We have old shirts there that are discounted, provided we have your size, and we even have hats. So if you're looking for any of that stuff, click the link down below.
As always, tons of stuff going on at Thralls of Metal. A whole slew of album reviews because it's still only February. Collection updates. What's John Jamming will be back eventually. We're doing the Black Dahlia Murder ranking this weekend. Finally. That'll be pretty sweet. Meshuggah's after that. Just tons of stuff. And we do it all because of you guys. thank you to all of you who continue to support Thralls of Metal. It's been a wild ride. I can't believe we've been doing this for 5 years. It's amazing how many people out there invite Thralls of Metal into their living rooms every week. I don't understand why you would let us into your house, but you do, and that's pretty cool, and we appreciate you for it.
Soon we'll be in your kitchen, and then your bedroom. And you know what happens there. Sleep. Lots of sleep. And I'm going to hog all the covers. Anyway, you guys are absolutely awesome. Thank you once again for every bit of support you guys give us. Tons of stuff coming in the future. So one more big thank you because you guys are awesome.
Thank you.
And we will catch you later.